Hello, welcome back to the Everything is Black and White podcast. It's time for the match preview with me, Andrew Musgrove, and John Gibson. Newcastle travel down to the capital to face Brentford at the G-Tech on Sunday, hoping to finally get back to winning ways on the road. John, welcome back. How are you doing? You keeping well?
Well, I am at the moment. I'm back in the land of reality, in the land of apprehension, like every Geordie. We've tucked away the Champions League into its drawer for the moment, and we're faced with the reality that's the Premier League. Let's see what it produces in London this time, Andrew.
Yeah, and I have to say I'm not feeling overly confident about it. And that's kind of where I want to start, because obviously we did the review of Newcastle's win over Bilbao, and a couple of the comments that were left from our viewers and listeners was that you'd think we'd lost that game the way me and you were going on. But I think our reflection was fair and just, and as we explained in the episode, it had a large part to do with what is coming next. If Newcastle United were at home to Brentford on Sunday, then I'd be feeling a lot more chipper. But Newcastle United are on the road where they haven't won in 8 games. And I make no apologies for the way that we came across in the episode on Thursday, because it was weighted by the task that awaits us on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, blind faith is rather foolish, and we all suffer from it because we love Newcastle United so much. But if blind faith, by definition, you're blind to what's happening. You've got to realise, Newcastle United most certainly have got to realise what has gone wrong and try to put it right. It's no good blindly saying, well, we are a good side, everything's hunky-dory, and, we just go our merry way. Sorry, 13th in the table, no away wins, nowhere nearer the bottom in terms of position than the top. And, you can't be blind to that. You've got to face up to it and do something about it. And that's what we're hoping Newcastle United have done. And that's all we're asking, Andrew. All we're asking is, through our concern for Newcastle United, that they approach this and solve it. Problems are there to be solved. Problems are there, but they've got to be solved. They don't write themselves by accident. And I hope that, and I know that Eddie has been working this week towards putting that right. He's a very shrewd man, Eddie. He knows that us in the Premier League, he can't recognise the same side as he has when we're in the Champions League or in the Carabao Cup. And that's got to be put right, not tomorrow, but not right now.
Do you think Eddie Howe is sitting there in his office and he's kind of scratching his head for the answer to why Newcastle United are so good at home, so comfortable in the Champions League, albeit it's been 3 home games that they have had, and he's thinking, why can't we do it on the road?
No, not quite. I mean, we touched on it, I think, in the when we look back at Bilbao. I think the problems are twofold. One is it's a test of character, not a test of ability when we go on the road, because we've got to want it so bad it hurts. We've got to be prepared to do all the dirty work, all the ugly work. We've stopped doing that. We used to do it. We've stopped doing that when we're on the way and we get crushed. So I think we've got to get that ruthless streak back, that desire back. And also we've got to solve the problem, which was no need to go into it again because we talked about it a lot against Bilbao. But the problem of Voldemort and the way he plays, and us finding a tactical solution to the way he plays, which involves the players around him. That is a problem. At home, it's a problem, but away from home, where you're absorbing more pressure by definition because you're playing away, it becomes a real problem, mind, and there's holes appear on the pitch that are not getting filled by other people around Voldemort. So I think tactically, we are suffering on the road because of the type of centre forward we've got, and we're suffering on the road mentally by producing the wrong attitude.
Yeah, I said 3 home games there. Of course, they lost to Barcelona, but won the other 2 home games and won against Union in the Champions League. But it's interesting you mentioned tactics, because a lot of people, John, when they look at Newcastle's defeat to West Ham or indeed to Brighton, one of the main conclusions is that something has to change when it comes to the formation that Eddie Howe's tried and tested and clearly successful 4-3, two wingers with the one up top just isn't working on the road. There's too much space to be exploited, and Newcastle United tend to, especially this season, be exploited with that space, especially behind the midfield three and in front of the back four. But I can't see him changing that. He might go to a back five. He might, but I don't see him changing his formation, especially not for this game. But is that something you subscribe to? That actually what we need to see is something a little bit different, whether it is a traditional 4-4-2 perhaps if he had the personnel. I mean, or is it more? Is the formation not the issue here?
Oh, I think it is the issue, and I think it's crept up on Newcastle almost by accident because of the way Voldemort plays, and because we can't. Risa would have just been a complete replica of the way we used to play, and therefore there didn't need to be any change whatsoever. Voldemort dropping deeper, etc., coming onto the toes of the midfield players not pushing up, getting a bit congested round our own penalty area away from home, and therefore we're not playing the way we had. I mean, if we could get Howe, who we spent the last program just going on in drooling about him, and by the way, the Germans must have been listening because within hours they put him back in the Germany squad. You probably noticed, Andrew. But if his ability on the ball, when he looks up away from home and wants to drop a pass into a centre forward to hold play up at the top, and we've got nobody there. If he had somebody there, it would be totally different. Voldemort is a totally different sort of player. And I think tactically, we've got to find a solution to it. And, we've give Eddie great praise on tactically changing things as he did in the Carabao Cup final, as he did with 2 legs against Arsenal in the semi-finals, as he's done on certain occasions. He's got to find a solution to this. This is the biggest test of him, Mad Dog, and Graham Jones and the rest of the staff. This is their big test. Given the hand that they've been given, which is no orthodox centre forward available to be picked, can you come up with a very clever tactical thing that'll bring also, which will reassure the other players that are a bit confused at the moment, and bring the best out of a very, very talented player in Voldemort. So I think it's very much a tactical thing, and very much a thing about getting back to the basic attitude we had when we were successful, which Dan Byrne talked about in his press conference prior to the Champions League, when he talked about us being the underdog mentality and playing the ugly side of the game. And he says you don't have to be underdogs to have that mentality. You've just got to adopt it. And let's get back to doing that. And let's get back to being ready to be ugly. And let's get back to desire. I keep stressing that point because I saw such a lack of it at West Ham, and that was alarming. And we knew that we wouldn't see that part of our game in the Champions League, and we didn't. We weren't at our best, but we didn't see a lack of desire, because that isn't in the Champions League. But there is a way to places like West Ham and Brentford.
I mean, look, as you've kind of alluded to, the ideal solution would be to have Wissa up top and Voldemort as that number 10, but Wissa's return has been further delayed, and now we've had the news that Osula is going to be out for a number of weeks. This ankle injury that he's been carrying and been dealing with has now become an issue, and Eddie Howe said after a scan they were advised to kind of pull back using Osula, hence the reason he dropped out of the squad later on against Bilbao on Wednesday. So, I mean, that news, I think we were hopeful Wissa would return for Brentford. I think it was definitely more hope than expectation. So we're not going to focus on Wissa at all, really. But Osula, I mean, it is a big blow because I personally, I've called for him to start up top with Waldemar as the number 10 a few months back, just to see how it would work because of the issue that we've spoke about in depth on Wednesday's episode, or Thursday's episode, sorry. But to not have him as an option off the bench, John, just to give Waldemar that rest should he need it, or even just to have something a little bit different, that is a huge blow. And it does maybe once again raise the question to whether Newcastle, even with Wissa back fit, need to go into the market in January for yet another striker.
I mean, are we jinxed? This is the land of the number 9s. This is a club built on the number 9 legends with Supermac and Alan Shearer and right back to Hughie Gallagher beyond Ward Jackie. Built on the number 9 legends, and yet we play season after season thin on the ground at number 9. Last season, we only had Isaac, and we lamented the fact that Callum Wilson was hardly fit and we had no number 9 backup, and we must get that put right. And lo and behold, here we are. We've got a number 9 who's not a number 9, and we've got the 2 other guys, Wissa and Osula, both injured. I mean, are we jinxed or what? And, it really, really is a huge problem because Waldemar has been vastly overplayed, bless him, for his own sake. He's never got a rest, the same as Big Dan Burn, because he's had to play because of Wissa's injury. Whenever he can, Eddie likes to bring him off around the hour mark or just after that to give him that little bit of a rest. When he was looking to do that with us comfortable winners against Bilbao, I mean, it ended, and Gordon was already off and Osula wasn't there, and it ended up with Elanga playing as a false 9. We're back to that, and we'll be back to that at Brentford, when presumably Gordon will probably not be available, Osula is not available, Wissa is not available. So when you want to bring Waldemar off, and by the way, you've got to start him, you've got no option. But when you want to bring him off, who plays it is through the middle striker? It's got to be Elanga or Murphy or somebody of that nature. I mean, and that's frightening because in the Premier League, you can't get away with that. The Premier League's better than that. And, you're going to struggle doing that in the Premier League. And we will struggle. Osula is a blow. Wissa was a huge blow. Osula is a blow. There's no question about that.
Yeah, indeed. And Anthony Gordon is a doubt for Sunday's game. He came off on Wednesday, of course, with his hip injury, but he has been called up to the England squad, so it mustn't be too serious if he does indeed head off to St George's Park. So that's one to watch during the international break. But I guess, John, with the news that Osula is going to be out for weeks, was what Eddie Howe said, and there's that further delay to Wissa. If you're looking and scrapping around for a positive away from the football on the pitch, it is, thank God there's an international break, because hopefully after 2 weeks, Osula might be back, and you never know, Wissa as well could be finally in the matchday squad.
Yeah, I mean, yes, I take your point, and that is the way to look at it. Thank goodness there's a fortnight's break. On the other hand, and let's not be pessimistic, can you imagine Waldemar getting injured during the international break in the same way as Wissa did with the Congo? Can you imagine what it would be like to come back to that? I mean, the number 9 problem isn't going to go away in the international break because our only centre forward is going to be playing. He's not going to be resting. And heaven forbid that, if there's a God in the sky, you wouldn't do that to us, would you? You wouldn't get him injured as well, because we would have to pack up shop if we had to go in against Man City on the return without a centre forward at all. Dear. That's unthinkable, isn't it? But we are down to that sort of situation now.
Yeah, we'll be watching those German games with our hands over our eyes, no doubt, and a penny for Eddie Howe's thought as well. I'd love to have him kind of wired up to a heart monitor or something during time Germany's playing, and every time Waldemar goes down, or 2 hours after, and he gets a text through, and he'll be thinking, I hope that's not someone telling us he's injured. But hopefully Waldemar does come through unscathed. I mean, obviously, the international break, John, it's maybe even more important than Newcastle United do indeed get a win on Sunday.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
2 weeks to think about it if they don't.
Absolutely, because it will change the whole complex of the situation. you know, the monkey will be off the back. We've got an away win. The world looks a brighter place. We can, you know, we can't just keep winning at home like the 3 games we've won at home and then go to West Ham and put in a performance like that. We can't put things right against Bilbao and go and put in another performance like that. We've got, and 3 of our 4 remaining Champions League games are away from home. So we've got to get a win under our belts, because as we've said before, we haven't played a top quality side away from home yet, Andrew. Bournemouth's the best side we've played away from home. We haven't played a Manchester City or an Arsenal or a Liverpool away from home. We failed to win against sides like Leeds, Aston Villa when they were in disarray, West Ham, etc. We haven't played the quality yet.
Do you think Keith Andrews and Brentford will be looking at this game on Sundays as the one that they'll be targeting for 3 points?
Oh, of course they will. I mean, everybody will target Newcastle away from home at the moment because their record justifies it. They're bound to look at it that way. Our answer's got to be, if you're so thirsty and you think you've got us and just get into us, etc., you're going to get your nose bloodied, because you're going to get a surprise at the way we come out of the traps, because we will be unrecognisable to what we were at West Ham. That's the thinking Newcastle United have got to adopt, because they have this incredible togetherness. They have this feeling that they're taking on the world. I mean, everything's gone against Brentford in the summer. I mean, they lost the manager who had made them into this wonderful side that punched above their weight when Thomas Frank went off to Spurs. They lost their skipper, Norgard, who went off to Arsenal. They lost 39 Premier League goals from the team when we said come to us. November went to Manchester United. That they were destroyed in the summer. And yet what happened? They replaced the manager with their set piece coach, Keith Andrews, who had never managed before in his life. They got an aging midfielder on the wrong side of the hill in Jordan Henderson, and they got a Liverpool reserve or third choice goalkeeper. And what did they do? They come up, they beat sides like Liverpool. They're standing a point ahead of Newcastle, and they've been absolutely decimated. It's the togetherness, the will to win, the band of brothers that we famously talk about. They've got that in abundance. We've got to match them for that. If we match them for that, we'll be okay. If we don't match them for that, we'll lose.
And we've got to watch out as well for their main man up top, Igor Thiago, who's got 6 goals so far this season. He's been linked with a move to Newcastle, actually. I mean, he's really flourished after that difficult first season in the Premier League where he didn't really feature because of injury. But you know, that's a big hole to fill, obviously, with Wissa going, and as you mentioned, in Burma as well. But he's impressed, and he's also been linked to several other clubs. So that's going to be an interesting battle up top, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. But Brentford have got this amazing thing. If they lose a wonderful goal scorer and then still survive. I mean, if you go back, they lost Ivan Toney before Wissa, etc. went. They lost Ivan Toney, and everybody said, well, they're not going to be the side they were now. Then they produced Wissa in November and scored 39 Premier League goals between them. And then they go, well, they're not going to survive now. And now Thiago is doing it. I mean, they've got a habit of doing this. Can we find out while we're down there how that comes about so that we can have a habit of producing centre forwards like that when we lose centre forwards like Isaac? Because we haven't had strength and depth at centre forward for quite a while, Andrew.
Well, I'm not mistaken. There's a boyhood Newcastle United supporter leading the way in the boardroom at Brentford. I think he's still a season ticket holder. I'm sure I read that somewhere. And I can't quite remember his name, but if you do, get into the comments and let me know. But yeah, it's going to be really interesting. But I mean, personnel-wise, John, on Sunday, Gordon, as we said, is a doubt. Even if he wasn't, I'd drop him out and bring Murphy in on the right and Bonds on the left. I'd like to see Miley in the middle, replacing Joe Linton, but I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think Lewis Hall is going to replace Dan Burn either, despite the calls of some, including us, last week. So the only real change, John, is going to be who replaces Anthony Gordon, right?
Yes. Oh, without a shadow of a doubt. And it's got to be Murphy. Bearing in mind that Bonds is already in the side, but Bonds will play outside left in place of Gordon and Murphy, who ought not to have been dropped, in my opinion, for Bilbao on form. Presumably it was because he's struggling a little bit with managing an ankle injury when there's 3 games in a week. But no, we're not going to see Hall back in at the moment because I thought he was terrific when he come on. I thought some of his forward runs were a breath of fresh air, and it reminded me of what we've been missing. But Byrne had a wonderful game, arguably one of the men of the matches, scored a terrific goal. You're hardly going to drop him, and he's hardly going to replace Chow or Botman the way they played in midweek. So Byrne stays in. Hall gets a few more minutes in his legs, and then as a fortnight's more training to bring him up to scratch, so he's full pelt after the international break and can start starting games. Equally, they're not going to drop Joe Linton, who's a firm favourite of Eddie's and who got a goal in midweek, having missed 2 before that, but he got his goal, bless him, and was better than he's been recently. So I think he will play again, because if he was carrying, etc., he gets a fortnight's rest after this game because he's not with the Brazil squad for this international fortnight. So he gets a rest. So no, he'll play as well. And Miley and Ramsdale.
Ramsey and Hall will be on the bench, and hopefully
just,
they can...
just as usual. I thought Miley, who I rate very highly, Andrew, and is a wonderful young player, I thought he was sloppy on the ball, along with many players when he come on in midweek. They give away, not under great pressure, they give the ball away a lot. I was quite disturbed at how Newcastle give the ball away in midweek, which is why the performance was competent rather than classy. You know, we may have won, but we didn't win looking like the old Newcastle.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose it's difficult for the likes of Miley to really get a foot hold in the game when you're getting limited minutes. But then on the other hand, when you're given those limited minutes, you have to make sure that you do indeed put in a performance of note. A reminder, ladies and gents, this episode is sponsored by NordVPN. Do hit the link in the podcast description box to get a discount offer on your NordVPN plan. Prices start from just over £2.30, so less than a cup of coffee on the high street, and you'll get the very best cybersecurity around, protecting you while browsing on public Wi-Fi. No risk with 30-day money-back guarantee. 1 subscription, 10 devices. So do sign up and hit that link in the podcast description box. John, if you were invited into the dressing room on Sunday just before the players ran out, what would you say to them? What would your team talk be?
It would be basically that what you face now is reality. What you face now is, in the words of Dan Byrne, who was sitting here in front of you, is where you earn your money. He said it's easy to get up for the Champions League, but we've got to earn our cash in games like West Ham and Brighton. Absolutely correct. You heard that from one of your own. You don't need to hear it from the manager. You don't need to hear it from me or from the fans. One of your own has admitted that. And there's nothing more true than that factor. You may have won midweek. You may be in the top 6 in the Champions League. You may be defending the Carabao Cup still. You're in with a very good chance of the semi-finals. But you know what? You can't eat caviar every day. You've got to eat bread and butter, and this is your bread and butter. And if you don't eat your bread and butter, you don't get any caviar next season because you don't qualify. So this is what it's about. And the whole spotlight is on you this Sunday afternoon. It's not just the Geordies that are in the crowd. It's not just the 50,000 Geordies that'll be watching on television because it's an away game. It's the whole of the country will be watching Newcastle United and saying, oh, are they just big-time Charlies? Will they not bother turning up for games like this? You're going to be looked at because of what you performed at West Ham. You're going to be looked at with a critical eye, and justifiably so, by the whole country on this Sunday. Now, do you want to come out of that with your head held high and say, look, this is the real me. This is what I'm about. This is what Newcastle United's about. The blip's gone. We've learned from it. It ain't going to happen again. Or are you going to be another tame surrender? In which case, it's going to get very scathing and the whole of the country is going to be very dismissive of Newcastle United. Look at the table. We're 13th. We've never won away. We don't score away from home in the Premier League, etc., etc. Don't look at the Champions League table. Look at the Premier League table. That is what it's all about right now. And you'll have a fortnight where you'll be dissected to bits by everybody if you produce another performance like West Ham, and the spotlight will be relentless on you, or you can have a lovely fortnight where you feel, and the whole country and our fans feel, we've got over the blip, we've woken up from this 40 winks, and it ain't going to happen again, and we're up for Manchester City. Now, which way do you want it? It's up to you.
Is it imperative that they play well as well? Because you mentioned there the West Ham performance, John, and it was dreadful. But it feels like we are past the point in the season where, say they play well on Sunday and they still lose, that we can hold that up as a positive, because we simply can't. The Premier League table doesn't lie. The points tally doesn't lie, and I'd take them playing awfully on Sunday. But getting 3 points, that'd suit me. I mean, what's your kind of viewpoint on that?
I dismiss completely, Andrew, whether we got to play well or not. Park that bus. 2 things have got to happen down there. We've got to get a very positive result, and we've got to show attitude. We've got to show spirit. We've got to show determination. We've got to show we care. If we do all that, there's a very good chance we'll get a positive result. But that is what's important. It's not flicking the ball about and doing lovely little runs and nutmegs and etc., etc. It's not looking lovely. It's looking ugly. Where you're ugly, you're in the other team's face, you're irritating, you're agitating them. I'm not meaning that you're committing fouls and doing. You're being realistic, and you're living in the realistic world. That's what I want to see. Forget about the pretty football. That'll happen or not happen. But there's 2 things got to happen down there. We've got to get a result, and to do that, we've got to show big desire that we had become renowned for. I mean, if you're talking to players, if you don't like us saying it, if you don't like the crowd saying it, if you don't like social media saying it, if you don't like the national press saying it, then listen to one of your own. Dan Burns said it, and he's one of your own, and he cares, and he's a Geordie lad. Listen to him, because he was right.
I'm going to get your result prediction in a moment. I'll just finish off, as I always tend to in these previews, with a few stats. Brentford have won just 1 of their 8 Premier League games against Newcastle, drawing 1, losing 6. Though it was a 4-2 victory in this exact fixture last season was where they got that win. Newcastle have scored in all 8 of their Premier League games against Brentford, netting 21 goals in total. It's their highest goals per game ratio against any side they've faced, more than twice in the competition. So expect goals. Brentford have won 11 of their last 17 home Premier League matches that haven't come against fellow London sides. So they will be hoping that record continues. And one for Eddie Howe, 12 points after 10 Premier League games is the fewest at this stage under Eddie Howe at Newcastle. It's Howe's fewest points after 10 games since 2017-18 as Bournemouth boss, when he collected 7. So he certainly will want to add more points to the board this Sunday. Will it happen, John?
Good question. Stats can mean anything you want them to mean. And stats in the main and the eye told us we would beat West Ham rather comfortably. But we didn't. So forget stats. Park them away over there. Those facts and figures, they don't apply to Newcastle. What applies is how big's your heart. how big is your indifference? How much do you want to get that right? And we've got to get that right. And that's been missing from our game this season in the league. It really, really has. And this is tough. This match, we've just won 3 Champions League matches on the bounce against Union, Benfica, and Bilbao. Brentford away is tougher than any of those 3 matches. It just hasn't got the royal seal of approval which the Champions League has got. Take away the Champions League, and Brentford away is tougher than Union away, for goodness sake, by a million miles. And when we look at Benfica and Bilbao, they were average size. Brentford's as good as them, and Brentford away will give us more problems than they give us. So let's get our reality head on and get on with doing the job that's in front of us.
I'm going to be honest, I am dreading Sunday. I really, really am. I just don't think Newcastle are going to have enough to get a victory as much as they need one. And I think they might actually lose. And I apologise to our viewers and listeners, and they'll end up calling us pessimistic and every other name under the sun. But I'm just being realistic and honest with my kind of viewpoint of this game. I think Brentford will be targeting Newcastle. They'll be hoping that they're tired. They'll be hoping to take advantage of the fact they maybe haven't got the options off the bench that we should have if everyone was fit. And just their away form, something is not right on the road. And I don't think it'll click on Sunday for Newcastle United to get a victory or even a point. And I hate to say it, I really, really do. But I'm backing Brentford to win this one, unfortunately, John.
I can understand that thinking. I mean, we have been reduced to that. I mean, I've been a man of supreme optimism this season, often misplaced. I have repeatedly took Newcastle to win, and I took them to win 3-0 at West Ham. All right, I took them to beat Bilbao 2-0, and that turned out to be precisely right. But I took them to win at West Ham 3-0, and we didn't get a touch, apart from scoring the goal, which we didn't take advantage of. It is very difficult, and yes, with Wissa and Osula exposing the centre-forward situation, we are in dire straits without a shadow of doubt. There's no question about that. It is hard to make out a case for Newcastle winning, which, let us be truthful, that's what they need. Without playing catch-up, and you only catch up by keep winning. So, and keep harvesting maximum points, 3 points, so you are catching up. I've just got to believe there's going to be some sort of reaction from the players that go out on the park, having been absolutely battered for their performance at West Ham, and battered by people that matter, like their own fans, and people that care about them, that are angry and upset and feel let down. The ode to them. I'm going to take a 1-1 draw. I can't even bring myself to justify a victory, although I'm hoping for that, and that is what's needed. In that, with a collective effort from kick-off to final whistle, and Lady Luck smiling upon us a tad, is possible. But it is hard to go down that road. And while I don't think a draw is good enough, by any means, because we are playing catch up, we still wouldn't have won away in the Premier League. I'm going for a 1-1 draw.
Well, I'll certainly take that 1-1 draw over my prediction of a defeat for Newcastle United. But fingers crossed, we're both wrong, John, and Newcastle United can get that first victory in 8 on the road. Thank you to you guys for watching and listening. Do get into the comments, do it, subscribe, leave us a rating and review on the audio only platform, and do take advantage of that discounted NordVPN offer and keep yourself safe while browsing on public Wi-Fi. Myself and John will be back next week.